Tim, this is a very special week, but before we get started with agency talk and all the goodness, for you listeners who are tuning in, I'm Marcus Murphy. I'm joined by my really good friend, Tim Burke, who owns a really awesome agency called Conduit. And every single week we get to sit down with some, what's that?
Yay.
Did you say yay?
I did.
Well, yay for you. I'm excited, that people know who we are, Tim. I'm sorry. I had to introduce myself. It's a new show, Tim. Okay. And Tim Burke is a good friend of mine, and we decided to do a show because all of the questions that we get about agencies, all of the really amazing agency owners that we continue to come across, but more so selfishly, Tim, it's for us. It's always for us. It's for all the kind of questions we have that come up. And I'll tell you, this week has been one of those weeks. This is the thing that you and I talked about this week, and it's the reason why we have such a special guest on. You have been out there on LinkedIn, and I know you've been talking to your team about, should I leverage my personal brand? Should I put myself out there more? You're somewhat apprehensive. I'm just saying, like, we've had conversations about this because you're like, am I wasting my freaking time? Why am I and you're in the big things you guys talk about all the time are client acquisition. Am I right about that? Like, how's that conversation going with the team?
Well, it's not am I wasting my time. I think it was really more, does anybody give a crap about what I'm going to say?
Yeah.
And I think that's really what it comes down to is, and everybody talks about bringing value, but if you're going to do this, you really want to make it valuable for, folks that are listening. And I think we've got a rare perch, both of us do, in that we do talk with a lot of agency owners, and they're confronting a whole bunch of things out there, and we've got to make sure that we're bringing real value to those folks. So I feel like we can do that, and I think we should get started. I
think everybody should give a crap about you, Tim. Just a side note. You know what I mean? You wear the best sweater vest I've ever seen in my life. And
you have sweater envy. It's that simple.
I do. All of mine have sleeves. I don't know what to do. I should probably cut them off. I'm not really sure yet. But Tim, it's your lucky freaking day, okay? Because if you're going around in your mind being like, hey, should people do this, or should we adopt this process? Our guest today is an expert in all of that and more. And let me say this, not only is she a mutual friend, but I wanted to write an introduction for her because I think everybody who's listening to this, if you're like doing your Peloton on your Spotify and you're out running or whatever you're doing, you're not watching us or you can't see Tim's amazing, majestic vest, then you can hear me talk about our guest. So here we go. She started her first company, Tim, 10 years ago, slanging vegan cookies. Okay. You know what it was called? It was called Sweet Monkee, Tim. That was the name of the company, which was my nickname in college, ironically, which is amazing. And but listen, she was slanging those directly to grocery stores in Wisconsin, or how you say it, Wisconsin. Okay. They also call it the bubbler up there, if you guys want to know what a drinking fountain is, and it's a cash machine or something like that for an ATM. I'm not really sure. She'll correct me at some point, as she always does. All while doing that, she was running a marketing team with a SaaS company. She had a newborn baby at home, right? Which already is just insane. But here's the deal. That didn't last, thank God. Okay. Because a few short years later, she founded an amazing 7-figure agency called Accelity, which I love, and all the people that work there I love. I've been to dinner with them, Tim. They are just a hoot, by the way. And if they're listening to this, you know who you are. You know who you are. You know who I'm talking about, my good friends there. She's also the co-founder of Women's Entrepreneurship Week in Milwaukee. She's a world-class speaker. Awesome. She's a content creator and a host of the amazing podcast, The Art of Entrepreneurship. She's a mom and a wife and an avid Pelotoner, Tim. And somehow she found the freaking time to come down to our little show and talk to us. And I'll tell you what, she's one hell of an agency owner. She's my good friend, Jackie Hermes. Jackie, what's good?
You guys have the cutest little vibe. Watching you do this was just really adorable. I love it. Thank you.
I don't want to be called adorable. Thank you for having me here. I want to be called.
When was the last time we haven't been adorbs for a long time?
It was adorbs.
Speak for yourself, adorbs. Tim. Speak for yourself. I want to be rugged. I want to be rugged and timeless.
Jackie, you truly live up to that introduction.
Yeah.
Well. Oh, thank you. I mean, all the things about Wisconsin were wrong, but everything else, good to go.
the bubbler, was it right?
I was going to say, what, the bubbler?
Some people say that.
You're in London. That's what they call it there.
Yeah. Actually, they call it weird things here. We're not talking about me right now. We've got Jackie Hermes here, and this can't be just about me. Jackie, we love you. We are such huge fans. Obviously, we're friends, but way before we were friends, I remember trying to figure out who I wanted to speak at one of our big agency events in New York City. And we had kind of met at a couple things. I think we met at Inbound, or just before Inbound, we met at a couple different things. But I've been following your career for years, not just as an agency owner, but an entrepreneur. And I'm just always fascinated and just admire you so much. Tim shares my sentiments, right, Tim?
Oh, without a doubt, without a doubt. And when you started talking about LinkedIn, Jackie posts something on LinkedIn and it goes like instant viral.
But it could be something so dumb, right? Just like, no. But she could be
I'm not judging I'm just saying, like, I could put the theory of relativity up there and I'm going to get a like, and she's going to, you just know how to resonate with your audience. And I think it's awesome. And that's one of the things that we wanted to really dig into today.
Thank you. I'm excited to talk about it. It's been a long journey, 3 years of posting content almost every day on LinkedIn, which is crazy.
Is it? All right. What was the genesis for that? What got you started?
Well, Marcus knows our friend Q, Quentin Allums, who actually was one of my first, I think he was my first employee ever, but he is not, that man's not cut out to be an employee.
Wow.
But he's the one who convinced me. He was like one of the very first people that was creating video, and he was like vlogging, walking around the beautiful streets of Milwaukee. And yeah, he was like, you have to get on LinkedIn. And I was like, no, thank you. I'll pass on that. And then he said, can you shoot a video for my channel? And I said, fine, I will do that with you. And he just, he really pushed me into it. I don't think that video ever got posted. He later said it was horrible, but as you do, you improve over time. And then I ended up contracting with his company to help me produce content, and off she went.
Note to self, text Q and ask him for that video. That's all I got from that right there, is that I need to see that video immediately of your early origins, because you're such a pro now. You're such a pro.
Okay, not rude.
Yeah, thank you. See what I did there? I did a negative positive, and I think that's what we're like. To
rip on you, compliment you.
Yeah, because you never know. How are you supposed to deal with that? No one knows how to deal with it. So
exactly.
Tim, I think had a really great, just to expand on that a little bit, because obviously the genesis of your business and those kinds of things. I mean, in your intro, you've been doing it for a long time, but the content part of it with Q, right? And your apprehension early on to not want to put yourself, because I think one of the things that Tim says, and so a lot of people will say they're agency owners, is just being like, well, who gives a crap about what I say or what I know? How did you overcome that? Did you ever deal with that?
I still have not overcome it. I still feel like that all the time. So now my assistant runs the schedule, at least like scheduling out and making sure that I'm creating content in advance. Because if it were up to me, I'd be like the day before, like, oh, what am I going to post on LinkedIn? So she keeps me organized, which is really great. But I review that and I'm like, oh, do I want to say this? Do I want to talk about this? Are people going to think I'm dumb? I now write a weekly letter. That's just a letter on any business mindset type topic that goes out every Friday. And half the time I'm like closing my eyes and pressing send. So no, I haven't gotten over it. I highly doubt anyone has, because you're sharing some of your most intimate thoughts, the things that you're personally working on, your challenges. You're really opening yourself up for people to enjoy your content, and sometimes for people to criticize you, and that's just kind of part of the game.
You just opened a door. You didn't even know you opened a door. You didn't know you opened a door, no. But I've been around you long enough to know you've got some haters out there. Because one of the things that I think a lot of people don't want to put themselves out there too, is that it's a vulnerable place online with a bunch of trolls everywhere that want to talk about how you look, not what you say, but how you look and what you do and what you're wearing. I mean, it's ridiculous. It's cutthroat. And I've seen some of those people write things about you and completely miss the unbelievable content that you're putting out in the world. How the hell do you deal with that?
People do really like to comment on the looks, especially. And it's like, excuse me, like, you're no gem yourself. I don't know. I mean, clearly you can't say anything back to people, because once you start responding to that stuff, you're just opening the door for arguments and whatever else. So I've learned I am like really block happy. And if people are being rude, I'm like, block. I see posts on LinkedIn all the time of people like, I've never blocked someone and I'm so proud. And I'm like, why not? I don't, if someone is being rude or crapping on me, or I don't know, commenting on my looks, I block them. I mean, it still sometimes bugs me. It depends probably kind of mindset I'm in that day, how resilient I am. But
It makes sense though.
it's
I mean,
got,
if you've got
yeah,
something toxic in the closet, you take it out.
yeah,
Yeah,
for
but I
sure.
mean, if she's getting look though, Tim, if she's getting dumped on for how she looks, so there's no hope for our podcast or us in this
No,
universe of online
we
world.
better have great content. We need great.
No,
content.
we have great guests. We have great guests, Tim. We are
There you
not.
go.
This is I have a face for this
Okay.
this radio thing, so I'm excited about it. Oh my gosh.
Good haircut, though.
Can I ask you a question? So we know that you got in somewhat reluctantly to doing this about 3 years ago. Did you do it to grow your own personal brand? Did you grow it to
Good question.
increase agency visibility? What was your mindset behind wanting to do it?
Both, really. I mean, I don't know that I had a really good goal up front. It was kind of like, okay, this LinkedIn thing is kind of new. People aren't just using it to get jobs anymore. People are actually networking, connecting with each other, publishing content. The video platform was brand new. So no one had even really been posting videos until that year that I started. And I was like, kind of like, let's see what happens. And then as I worked with Q and his team and developed this strategy, I was like, okay, this is really cool because I'm building a personal brand that I can take with me to whatever I want to do, be it, like continuing to run the agency, launching new companies, courses, podcasts, all the things that I'm kind of up to right now, and grow visibility for the agency. Because I think especially there are so many freaking agencies out there. Like we focus on SaaS companies and marketing for SaaS companies. And if you Google SaaS marketing agency, how many results are you going to get? You have to find a way to make yourself stand apart in some way or another. And it's not going to be like having a cuter brand. You have to actually reach people. I mean, branding is important, and having, a fun brand or whatever it may be for your agency also important. But it doesn't matter if you don't get it in front of anyone. And I think we all know that as marketers.
Yeah. It's interesting though, because do you have like a direct attribution to your brand and new clients? Like, does your team measure that, or how do you guys do that? Because that would be good for a lot of people, because if they're trying to figure out how to build this thing, which we'll get into process in a little while, but like if they're trying to build this thing out, they probably want to know like that it's actually making a difference.
Yeah, at first we did not have a good system whatsoever. It was just kind of like, okay, I know that I'm getting in front of people and they're reaching out to me, so this is working. But I didn't really have a system where I could directly attribute. Now I am a lot smarter with how I track things. I'm using Shield, which is a really cool tool that shows you like how much traction each of your posts have. And then I make sure I have CTAs on every single post. In the comments, you can't really put them in the copy, otherwise your post won't go anywhere, but it'll be CTAs to my podcast or CTAs to DM me if you're looking for help with XYZ. And then we can specifically measure, okay, 4 people DM'd me from this post and 2 of them open sales conversations. I can directly attribute that to that post, that topic, etc.
Yeah, that's great because, right, Tim, like Tim's big on attribution. Also just, I think Tim's excellent in the minutia of details and data points. And I think that that's something that is great. Me, on the other hand,
not me.
No.
I am not. I'm like, okay, someone tell me what to measure and I'll look at the data, but it's just like, I want to see the numbers going in the right direction, and how we get there, I don't care. I think that makes me a good leader because I'm not a micromanager, but it doesn't make me a good, like if I was running my brand solo, I would be terrible at it. I have help, thankfully.
Speaking of help, let's do 2 things really quick, because I feel like there's a really good opportunity. I know that there's probably a burning question in Tim's brain right now, but I also kind of just want to use him as our muse. Is that a good one? Is it a muse? So let's say this is interesting because honestly, Tim, this is stuff that you've been talking about all the time, and it's really interesting because I want to know like the first step. Like I want to get into a little bit of process. You don't have to get crazy because I know like you and I don't love living in that, but in order for you to do what you do and the team that you just talked about and having an assistant and writing all the stuff and doing things, it just sounds like a lot. And so I'm assuming that your company and the people that you've hired in your company and on your team are a big part of this process. So like if Tim was going to go out and really go after this thing and really ramp up and dedicate his life and time to this as an agency owner, what is that process for you guys in terms of getting the content out, getting it created? Like how many people own what in your company, and do they do multiple things, or do you have your own content team within the organization?
Yeah, we're fortunate enough to have what we call the Catalyst Creative team here, and so we've got people that are very skilled at doing all of this. But we have marketing meetings where we talk about directionally where we want to go, and then they kind of make those things happen, which is great. And I love the attribution that Jackie was talking about, because ultimately you do want to know that your efforts are rewarded. And if I think the whole thing with this is not to just put out content, because content for content's sake is kind of crappy, right? It's just noise. And I think ultimately what it is it's about how to resonate. And you're not going to resonate with everybody, like you talked about earlier. And yet you have haters, but ultimately it's resonating with those people that are like-minded enough to understand, hey, listen, all relationships are built, on certain things like trust and things like that. And, so you've got to resonate with people that are ultimately have the same values as you, because that's how you're going to scale a relationship, a business relationship. So that's where I think content comes in, is people can see the real you. And that in some ways that's good. In some ways it might not be, but I think being genuine with your content is everything. So I think there's a lot of, I'm not judging, but there's a lot of posers out there that want people to believe that they're things that they aren't. And I'm too old to, get into that game. So ultimately, I think it's about resonating with the right people, I hope.
Yeah, but you can get in the poser game if you want to, Tim.
Just make it up.
Yeah. Tim, you just see Tim standing in front of private jets that he doesn't own and just all that stuff. But there is something about.
Do people really buy that?
Oh yeah, ask Ty Lopez. Just whatever you want to, you do that. Ty, hey Ty, shout out to Ty, who doesn't listen to this podcast and never will. Tim said something which is interesting about authenticity, and I would love to know, in terms of a brand perspective, this is probably for your personal brand, but also you've done a great job with this at Accelity. Is there intentionality that goes behind creating something that's authentic, and how do you do that on regular? You're putting out so much content. How does that come from an authentic place? Is that intentional?
Yeah. And it's something that I try to translate through the agency too. And I think it's authenticity, but I kind of hate that word. I feel like people are like, "Oh, you have to be authentic." And it's like, well, you're authentic or you're not. And you have to maybe push yourself to be more transparent with your thoughts and your actions and whatnot. And I think that leads into authenticity. But I don't think authenticity is something you can set as a goal and manufacture. So let me say that first. I look at it more as being transparent about the good and the bad. And that is on social media. That's with my team. I just yesterday had our monthly update where I talk to my team every single month about what our revenue goals are, what our profitability goals are, what our retention goals are, whether we're hitting those, and why or why not, and what we're doing to change it. And so they get a really deep view of everything that's happening in the company. And if we're not making money, they know about it. And it's kind of a risky strategy, I would say, because some people, it's like startup life. We're not huge. And some people would be like, "Oh my God, am I going to have a paycheck?" But I always make sure that my people are taken care of, right? And I always make sure, during COVID, it was man, we just lost 40-50% of our business, and we have to furlough the team down to 4 days a week. And that's the decision that I had to make. And everyone across the board took the cut, even me, even my leadership team, no matter what the workload was, we distributed it all. And it was just this is what happened. This is the revenue effect. This is why, and this is what we're going to do about it. So I think you can see that mentality in my content. For example, I was recently working on doing the 75 hard challenge, and I quit it. And I'm going to post about why tomorrow, what happened and why I decided it wasn't serving me. It was just this weird perfect storm. But I pride myself on being an achiever, someone who follows through, a go-getter. And so posting about something that I started and that I told people that I started and then I quit, but I didn't really want to tell people that I quit. It was painful to sit and write this post, but I got to do it because I promised that as part of the promise of my brand and getting out there on LinkedIn that I was going to tell people the bad stuff too. So interested to see how that one goes over.
So what was it? What was it 32 hard? Was that what it was?
45.
Oh my gosh.
I know. I made it 45 freaking days of like 2-a-day workouts and all this crazy stuff. And then one day I put my dog down and then I got a call and we lost a pretty big client right after that. And I was just like, and I still had to do a workout. And I was like a kid throwing a tantrum. I was like, I'm not doing this. I'm not getting out of bed. I didn't get out of bed for like a day. I was like, I'm done. I give up. My kids were like, Mom, are you okay? And I was like, I will be okay. I just need to lay in bed just for one day. And then it was all fine. But you know what? I quit. I made the conscious decision to quit because I could have gotten my butt out of bed and I didn't do it. And now I have a duty, I think, to tell people why. And I think that's one of the big problems with personal branding is people don't actually tell the truth. You know, they show the highs, but they don't show the lows.
That is such an amazing segue into something that I really am interested in. So one, I want to make a comment first before we go into this next thing. So you're telling me that you actually run a company and have a job and you're not just a full-time content creator on the internet?
Yeah, both of those things.
Yeah, yep. Right. Which is wild.
It's hard, but someone's got to do it.
So one thing I've always been impressed about with you, and I guess actually my closest relationships, like Tim's the same way. I love vulnerable people. I love people who put out, and this goes to your brand, but I love people that put out the good, the bad, the ugly otherwise. Like they're very transparent with it. One of the questions that I love, because you are, in my opinion, I think a lot of people, you're a North Star in my opinion. For a lot of people who are agency owners or business owners or entrepreneurs, I think that they should look to you and be like, what is she doing and how is she doing it? And I think a lot of people are. But I think that in that, they don't always get the slog of it all. Like the long dig that you had to do to get where you are. But I want to know, like, just to help a few folks feel a little bit better, would you mind sharing kind of some of those failures along the way? Like the notable ones, if you can remember them, that just like totally, that were totally like a brain dead moment. They were like, oh my God, I can't believe I did that. Cause I think that'll help a lot of people. And obviously it humanizes such a gem like yourself.
Legitimately, as soon as you said that, I was like, where do I start? I have a long list of things to talk about. Well, let me start with, I sucked it up for the first 5 years. Like I'm in year 8. I probably could have gotten here in 3 if I had been less stubborn. I got coaches and mentors sooner. I had been watching the money aspect of the company better. It was like, I think a lot of agency owners feel this where you're like, every dollar feels so dang hard to earn until you get to a certain place, right? And I did that for 5 years. I probably should have shut down the company multiple times. I drained my savings to make payroll twice. And I didn't tell anyone at that time. I was not transparent about it because I didn't want to scare people. And by the time I did tell them, like, probably a year later, they were like, oh, we knew something was up. Like, you've been acting weird for a long time. And I was like, well, I'm a moron. I should have just like been honest, right? Instead of trying to be this stoic hero. It was just silly. I brought my ex-husband into the company. That didn't go well. We are now divorced for many reasons, but I mean, that's a big mistake that you really have to think through that, right? Like if you're going to work with a significant other or a family member or a kid or whatever it may be, you really have to think through that and not just do it out of, it was like, okay, I have a need. You don't want to work for someone else. Let's do this. That was not thought through enough. And I still am making mistakes all the time, hiring mistakes. I still have not cracked that code where it's like, I think I'm getting pretty good at hiring, but you know, we still have some random turnover, some people that just aren't a fit for the role. And in hindsight, it's always like, oh, I should have seen that. But I don't know. I'm not perfect. I would say we're still making mistakes all the time, but the mistakes are getting fewer, further between, and easier to handle all the time.
I'll tell you.
That was a long list.
No.
I have more too. Want me to keep going?
No. Please stop. Please stop telling everyone all your failures. You know, it's funny because I do love that. I haven't learned a lot in success. I think I've said that to Tim before. I have a hard head and all the other stuff too that goes with that. And I like to learn. I like to learn in ways where I can also maybe learn from others and their failures. So sometimes it's really great because we identify potholes. You said something about hiring, and I think that you're right. That's like the hardest thing. Tim and I do talk about that. That's a freaking beast of a thing. But you are getting some things right. So like what are the things that you've found to be really great around hiring since you brought it up that actually work for you guys?
Yeah, we put a lot better process in place. We actually have people do test projects up front. Like if someone can start on a contract basis or part time or something like that, if that's something that they want and we can see if it's a good fit, that's great because agency life is definitely not for everyone and it can be really stressful. And you have to be a certain kind of person to want every day to come into an agency and handle, like 40 stakeholders and all your internal team stakeholders and have all that communication with everyone. And I think I've learned the hard way all the people that don't really want to do that, but think they do when they set foot into an agency. So, I mean, just being a little more specific about the exact skills that we're looking for. I think a lot of people, when they start hiring, they're like, oh, I like this person. I bet they could do that job. And that's a terrible, terrible way to hire. Like I've hired and fired and had people leave that I liked plenty. And that's always a sad situation. So I don't know if that's revolutionary. Hire based on skills. Have a good process. Reference checks. Often we ask in the reference check section, like for a name of a peer that they mentioned during the interview process, like, hey, can we talk to that person? Or if they mentioned a boss at a certain company that they were at, we'll say, hey, can we talk to that specific person? Excuse me, instead of just, because whatever list of references they hand over is like their friend. I have people that are like, oh, hey, could you say I worked at your company and be a reference for me? And I'm like,
Right.
this makes me really lose faith in this process.
Has your priest ever said anything really bad about anyone?
Yeah, exactly.
Not a good reference.
No.
Father Tim.
Do you use any kind of third party at all to kind of vet both the position and the potential employee?
Not really. If you suggest that, I would love to hear about it. I mean, I have my business coach who is a freaking tough cookie. We're all so Midwestern nice that we're like, you meet everyone in the company and everyone comes through our process and they might meet 5 people and they're like, oh my God, your team is so nice. And I'm like, they definitely are, but that also sometimes means that we're a little too nice. And my business coach is like really tough. She'll scare the crap out of people. So if for key hires, I have her interview people. Just my head of sales says that it's the hardest and scariest interview he's ever had. He still took the job though, which is great.
Yep, love it. I think at the end of the day, and you mentioned firing is so difficult, and it is. No one should ever like that. But you feel such a fiduciary responsibility to your team, and the way ultimately, and it sounds like you do the same exact thing. The way ultimately to build a great team is to put the right people in the right positions. And that requires really two main things. And one is knowing what that position entails. So an analyst position is different than a sales position. Those are two different type of people. And so once you identify the characteristics and the traits of the position, then we've got to find a way to vet the potential employee for those traits. And sometimes those don't show up in interviews. So we use a third party. And I was a sales manager for years, and we always used to vet salespeople this way. And so we brought it into this company, and now we know going in that once we've vetted a position, we can match the right person up with that position. And all that means, it doesn't mean they're going to succeed. All it means is they have the right DNA for the job. Because where you break down is putting the wrong person in that seat and then asking them to do something they're not physically built to do. So I think finding the right people is so important. But also from a fiduciary standpoint, when you hire somebody, their success is your responsibility. So I think putting the right people in those positions is just so important. And that's not something we started with, but something that we've just embraced, and the whole leadership team here has embraced over the last couple of years.
Wow.
That's amazing. I think part of that too is making sure that you have really good managers that are mentors and coaches and are helping people succeed. And all of my management team has come up through the company. Most of them have spent their entire professional careers working for me.
Wow.
And so it's like, I feel a really, really crazy responsibility to develop them into the kinds of managers that are going to make people successful, want to stick around, not feel micromanaged, have the flexibility to be successful in the role, but also have the resources to succeed. So that's a different topic, but I think developing the managers in your company is one of the most important things you can possibly do.
Yeah, without a doubt. That's where the culture lives, is through those people that started with you and learned what you want out of your company, and now project that, to your clients. So I think that's sensational.
It's amazing. I've got two things, because one of the things that I wrote down there, one, I have to use fiduciary more in my everyday language. Two, Midwestern nice, by the way, is that is like foreign to East Coasters. Okay. So Tim's really lost when you said that. Tim, let me break it down for you. My wife's from New York.
I spent a lot of time in Milwaukee.
Yeah, sure. But listen,
it's XXI.
No,
I'm trying to think of the TV station.
He doesn't know, Jackie.
I've been to 120 TV stations.
I totally
I forget call letters. I don't forget people.
My wife is from New York, so she wears black and she's cynical. What she did, I took her. So I'm from the great state of Ohio, Tim. And I took her back for the first time and only time we've ever gone there, because we were driving around and I'm just waving at people and whatever. And she's like, "Oh, were these people your neighbors? And do you still know them?" And I'm like, "Oh no, I don't know them at all."
Never met them.
Yeah. And actually, I live in London where no one breathes at each other. So I feel like, the Midwestern nice is so nice that sometimes it's like, but it's not like fake South nice. It's like nice, like I still have a front porch and you can probably knock on my door, which is interesting.
I go on a walk and legit every person I walk by, "Hello, how are you today?" Like they'll even stop and talk to you. And I don't know if I'm that Midwest nice. I'm kind of like, let's keep it moving here. All the neighbors are friends. I swear my husband knows every freaking neighbor we have. And I'm like, well, I think I'm a little like between the Midwest nice and your wife.
All right. It's a perfect segue for our next vein of this interview, which is just gone. We could go back into talking about Jackie's failures for another hour and a half if you want to do that. I mean, that's an interesting topic.
Rude again.
I'm just saying, I just want to, no, listen. All right. You're amazing. All right. This is all good. So Tim, one of the things Tim was talking, which I want to pass it over to him because he's absolutely fascinated by something that you openly talk about all the time, which is change management. Now, the first time I heard that term, I had no idea what it meant. But Tim seems to and it's interesting because I went and read a lot of your stuff, but Tim, like you were just talking about this morning, and I wanted him to kind of go into some of the stuff that he had about change management.
Yeah, Jackie, and I know that you've talked about that, and in a lot of your content as well. And one of the things we talk about here, and one of the videos that the team did here years ago, and I had nothing to do with it, which is probably why it was so great in my head. It was called Driver, and I'm 30 years older than everybody that works here. And so I say things in enough repetition so that A, I sound like that old guy, and B, some of the shit they remember. And I say people are either drivers or passengers. And there's room in the world for all of them. But at our company, you have to be a driver. And the reason for that is that it changes so often. Like if you're not comfortable with change as a driver, you're in the wrong space. And in digital marketing, especially, things are changing all the time. And how do you navigate that at your agency? And how do you keep people not fearful of change, but hopeful?
Mm-hmm. I think a lot of it is around communication. And if you're working in marketing, it's going to change. That's table stakes to me. You walk in the door, you're a marketer, things change every month to whatever. We're changing our processes all the time. And so I think that communicating about that in the hiring process is really important. Like, hey, this is a fast-paced environment. I hate saying that, but it's true. And shit changes all the time, and you have to be comfortable with that. And I think the best fit employees thrive in it. Like that's something that I thrive in, the constant change and trying to figure out how to implement it and how to optimize that change. So I think a lot of it is that upfront communication, and then looping back with the employees to make sure that the changes are actually working. So for example, we're working on a new capacity management system right now, and we can look at the data of how much our employees are billing and how much their time they're spending in accounts and stuff like that. And we can make assumptions moving forward, but then we have to go back to it and say, was this actually true? How do we need to change it next month? Like everything that we do has to be living and breathing. And then you have to go back and communicate that with them. That communication piece is something that I've had to work really freaking hard at, because I think I have conversations in my head that I just assume that people know what's up, and it's not always like that.
It's so amazing you say that. We just had this
It's
conversation
true.
yesterday. We said, all right, assumptive communication is not communication. Like you have
Yep.
to literally let people know and put it out there. As you were saying that, one of the things, I've mentioned this on this before, but years ago, I was working at a consultancy, and I was listening to sales managers from all over the country, and they were just trying to get in their people's heads. And I thought that was the wrong place for them to be. And I wrote an article called Lead People Manage Process. And just that just stuck in my head indelibly over the last 25 years, where the process is great. I'm a salesperson, so innately I'm not fond of process, but I've embraced it. And what I've realized is that if the process is, replicable, then ultimately you can lead people through the management of that process. You don't wind up managing people, which who wants to be managed, right? So ultimately, as you were saying that, I was kind of thinking that through that in my head is that's what you're doing there, creating the process so you can better lead people.
I actually this morning was working on my own podcast and writing notes for an episode that I'm going to shoot on micromanagers. And micromanagement is one of the most harmful things I think you can possibly do within an organization. And I was sitting there thinking back on like the managers that I've had that were good and bad and what made them good and bad. So very applicable topic. I think most people don't need to be actively managed. Like if we do manage people, it's on like looking at them as a whole person and making sure that they have everything that they need so that they can show up the way that they want to at work. And we trust that they are well trained on the process and that they can go execute it. And if they have questions or problems, that they're going to bring it back to us. So that's the mentality that I want all my managers to have.
Yeah, love that. Love that.
Well, Tim, you're my hero for taking on the word replicable, because that was
it wasn't easy.
That is not an easy word. No, because I always want to say replicable is what I want to say. That's how
I almost got there. Yeah.
I did. Yeah, you got it. I was really impressed. Well, Jackie, obviously you've given us so much of your time. You're so generous with everything that you do. Tim and I have a tradition of what we like to call the one big thing. It's the way we like to close the show. It's kind of a, we want to. Like you said, there's millions of podcasts and agencies and people that call themselves that. And what we wanted to kind of differentiate is that we wanted this to be actionable for people and just something that they go. So we've talked about a lot. All right. We've had a few laughs. We learned about your vegan cookies. There's a lot. All your stuff.
God.
What I want to know.
You went back to the cookies.
What's up with that? I mean, the name of the cookies. Tell us how the name came before we go into this last thing. Where the name come from?
Okay. Long story, very short. My ex-husband wanted to go get an MBA and he wanted an entrepreneurship degree. And then he was like, oh, let's start a company instead. And I was like, okay. That's really how all of that happened. He found these cookies for sale out in Buffalo, New York, and it was attached to the name Sweet Monkees with 2 E's, which I absolutely hated. And we kept it anyway. And it was like this like clip art monkey that like her 12-year-old son designed. And I kept the whole dang brand. I don't know. So that is how that happened. The misspelling with the 2 E's was not my favorite thing, but alas, they were delicious cookies. I will say that.
Sweet Monkee.
But thanks for propping Buffalo, New York.
Oh yeah, Tim loves Buffalo, New York. Yeah, so
I do too.
Sweet, good. You got you two, and one other person. So, Sweet Monkee, thank you so much for telling us that. That's a really good story. But yeah, one big thing. The one big thing that we would love from what we've talked about, if you can remember from back from the very beginning all the way till now, what is something really actionable that people can do if they turn this off, take their AirPod out, and go back in their agency and start working? What would you say that would be?
I would say probably the like takeaway and thread through all of this is that it takes longer than you think, and that you have to be really consistent to be successful. So like when you're looking at your daily work, I think you have to look at your little tiny daily actions every single day that builds into what success actually is. It's not like the big highs or the big lows. It's those tiny little actions every day. So like if you're getting started on LinkedIn, you have to content plan. You have to do it every day. You can't post once a week or once every 2 weeks. You really have to like be consistent. And that's the same thing. I mean, we talked about how long it took for me to get my company anywhere. It's all in those little daily decisions and action. So I don't know if that's like turn around and do it, but if you're taking a look at your calendar today, like what on my calendar is getting me where I want to go, that could be a great first step.
God, that's good. Yeah. And from somebody on the LinkedIn side, looking at your almost 100,000 followers and just how much you've put into that daily over 3 years to build something up like that, which is a valuable audience. I mean, yeah, I hope my big takeaway, honestly, Tim, and I don't know what yours is, I'm just going to share while she's here, is totally that. Is that this thing's a slog. It takes time, and you got to really be in it, because every agency owner that I really admire and that comes on this show, it seems to be a consistent message. It's like the persistence that it takes to be successful.
Yeah, I love all of that. I think there's no linear path to success. It's a whole bunch of different turns that you have to take. Some are down dark alleys and some don't feel great when you're there. But ultimately, it's those things that make you more resilient and ultimately a better leader over the course of time. And Jackie, you are a very good leader. I picked up every bit of that today. So thanks for joining us. This was great.
Yeah, thank you so much. You're
it.
Awesome. She's the best, isn't she? She's literally like,
yeah, that was terrific. That was a very self-aware, very honest person. And I think her team's lucky that she's the point for her team. I really do.
Yeah, I mean, I know her, like we know each other really well. And I still, every single stinking time that we get onto a call like this or anything that we do, it's always like I'm learning something from her. And one of it is like, you know what, putting your life out there in a authentic way is probably dangerous and scary, but totally worth it, you know?
Yep. I mean, she said she doesn't love the word authentic, and that's because she is. You know, she doesn't have to try and craft it because it's already there. And that's, you know, I think that was a really great conversation. And I think from an agency perspective, you know, there's a lot of things there that she talked about that all of us confront in running our agencies. And you know, I think the people part of it is so huge that she was talking about. And so I don't know, a lot of good stuff there.
Yeah, I know. I got to like go back and listen to it. Hey, listener, thank you so much for tuning in to Agency Talk with us and spending a little bit of time getting to know Jackie if you don't know her, or going deeper if you do. And we're just so excited. And here's the thing. We're going to get everything that was mentioned in this will be on the page under her information. So you can follow along with her, follow her on LinkedIn, be one of those amazing people who gets all that daily content that she puts out in the world. And as always, you know, the one thing that we really want you to do is to take something you've learned and to put it into action. We can't stress that enough, that, you know, it's not just content, it's about implementation. And Tim, you're gorgeous. You're amazing. You're inspiring. I love doing this show with you as long as you want to do it with me. So
thank you, Marcus.
All right.
Have a great day.
See you later, guys.